Okay, thanks. Well, good morning, JawnCon. Thanks for letting me join you here, and thank you for accommodating the remote delivery. The best laid plans I had intended to come to JawnCon in person to deliver this, but some personal things prevented that. So this was the next best thing. So thank you to the staff and everyone who has made a remote delivery of this possible. So this morning's talk, I bit of tongue in cheek here, and seriously, this should be the last one. Uh, the tongue in cheek aspect of this is that if you are a collector, very often of anything, but especially when it comes to, I find with collecting things like vintage computers or vintage electronics and the like, that we kind of have trouble saying no. Whether that's somebody who wants to part with something free, or whether we see something just that we really love. So just we're gonna this is going to be a presentation really directed at people who are not currently collecting but have an interest in becoming vintage computer collectors. There is some applicability to what I'm going to talk about to general kinds of whether it's vintage electronics or teletypes or any kind of vintage restoration and repair work when it comes to these areas. So also, I guess I'll say that since this is since JawnCon is a Philadelphia con and a Pennsylvania centric con, I did wear the Millersville University sweatshirt. I am originally from Lancaster County, and so I am a Pennsylvania raised guy. And so let's go ahead and roll into that a little bit. And so, who am I? Why am I talking to you? And kind of how this all began. I am not going to bore you with extended background information, just because one of the things that always drives me nuts is when I go to a presentation and somebody spends more time talking about themselves and than the material, and also the let me tell you all about the things that I've done in my life. So we're going to keep that to a minimum, but it will be I will be talking about the parts that are applicable. So when did I get into this? What caused me to land in this collection world that I'm in now? Probably that would be the obsession that started in 1980. Yes, that is me at Centerville, at the middle school in Centerville, outside Lancaster, and working with a Commodore CBM computer, which is where I originally learned how to write in BASIC, and kicked off sort of my interest in computers. Move forward to 1983. It's it's the 80s. Computers are becoming a bigger thing into the home and the household, and local newspaper decides this is the Lancaster New Era. I think, or is it the Lancaster New Era or the Intelligentsia? Decides to do a newspaper article in 1983 about some of the kids at Hempfield High School who are big into computers. The TV show The Whiz Kids was on at the time, which was a really horrible TV show about a bunch of kids who use computers to solve mysteries. And so they selected me on the left and my buddy Kevin DiCostanzo on the right to be the features in the article. Now, the fun part about that is, fast forward to 2012, I happen to be in Delaware, where Kevin lives now, and so we reenacted the photo from 1983, but using a modern computer. So when I say that, this is information that I think it's important for you to know, because this is where the obsession with computers really began. And while modern computers, I believe, offer us a lot of opportunity to do things better, faster, obviously with the advent of AI, the amazing levels of computing is just, I mean, it's almost science fiction like. But I think that the connectivity we have to our ancestors, if you will, is incredibly valuable, and it is a level of learning that we cannot get from the current computer equipment that is available to the consumer. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So what's on our agenda for today? So today we're going to talk a little bit about the getting started basics. What kind of things do you need to do to get started in vintage computer collecting? talk a little bit about how to choose your focus, because believe it or not, there are a multitude of things within within this collecting realm that you can get sucked down rabbit holes. And while that often, I've seen this happen to a lot of folks, and they end up accumulating but never really doing anything or creating any kind of serious value or use out of what they're doing. We'll talk a little bit about the tools that are needed, where to get systems, some alternatives to systems you can't necessarily find. So physical systems that you can't get your hands on. So how can you work with some of this vintage technology when you don't have those things available, and where to find help if you are in need of some while you're exploring this area. So you're going to notice that there's a certain theme, if you will, to the colors and the way that I've done the fonts and such on the presentation. And where did I sort of bogart that from? That was from these kinds of original documents. These are just some snippets of the early computer clubs that had formed. So whether it was the People's Computer Company or the Homebrew Computer Company, out in all of these being out in the Silicon Valley area in California. uh, it's important to remember that we didn't have cons back in those days like we do today. So the ability to share information and to learn from one another was often done in these club formats. It was tended to be local, with just local folks attending, and the information was less structured like we have in cons. There were very few presentations, like just where you had tracks where people could go. It was more just a general meeting where people would bring information and such. So why did I have this here? Well, one, I wanted to give you kind of an understanding of uh, why am I making my presentation have this theme of its aesthetics. But second is that there is still, if you are into collecting and decide to get into this realm, uh, or you're currently collecting these documents, uh, these old newsletters are all available online. And believe it or not, there are still some valuable bits and pieces of information out there that you can get to experience as you're working with this classic technology. You can get some experience as to what kind of things were our technology ancestors, if you will. What were they exchanging? What kind of information did they find important? Of course, we don't have the ability to dial into bulletin boards like they did back then. There are bulletin boards that are online nowadays, of course, which you can get through just connecting through the internet, and they are resurrected versions of some of those BBSs from back in the day. But these documents, you're going to find them kind of interesting, I think, and helpful. If you want to learn more about where, as a group, we came from as hackers, where did we come from? And so you saw from the earlier pictures that my time frame goes back to about 1980 when I got started in this. So I was kind of going through the hacker community in not that 60s and 70s world was a very different kind of hacker community and hacker world. The 80s, of course, being the time when phone phreaking and everything was really starting to catch on, and a lot more was getting publicized. But if you're interested in the history of it, I cannot recommend highly enough this book called Hackers, Heroes of the Computer Revolution. If you've never read this or listened to it on Audible, I strongly encourage you to do it. It is just a fascinating look into our roots, into where we came from as hackers. And it talks a great deal about the hacker mindset and what makes the way we think different than the way the average person just tends to blunder on through life. There's the almost obsessive nature that we can develop for our desire to learn, to understand, and to become very close to the technology that we embrace. So let's go ahead and start talking about, let's get to the first part of the agenda here and getting started. So there are going to be some things, I think, this has just been my experience, that you're going to need to really get started in, regardless of what lane you'll pick, and we'll talk a little bit about that next. Regardless of what area you're going to collect, there are going to be some things that you're going to need. First and foremost, if you're married, you're going to need a tolerant spouse, because I guarantee you, this is something that you can't do without having someone who is willing to put up with your quirkiness and strangeness about this. But then again, if you've been in the hacking world for a while and you have a spouse, then odds are they already know that we're all a little on the strange side. So this probably will not come as much of a surprise. Second, you need to designate a storage, display, and usage place. So, and I know, I don't know if any of you watched the TV show that's on called Collector's Call. It's on Sunday evenings, and every now and then I catch an episode of it. And typically that's when I look at my wife and go, see, it's not all that bad. Look at these guys. They have an entire room full of, bobbleheads. These things will take up room. They take storage environments that may not be just throw it in your attic, because you're going to learn as we go through this a little bit today that you're going to learn that a lot of these things come from bad storage environments, whether they're barns and attics and things like that, which are very detrimental to the devices themselves. So storage actually becomes a bit of an important aspect. You need to make sure that you have a climate controlled environment. And if you're not going to be using some sort of offsite storage, you're going to need to find something in your house where you can store it. Then display and usage. A lot of folks that do collect vintage computer systems, we want to use them. We want to use these devices as they were back in the day, and sometimes even push them a little bit beyond where we currently are, the technology that we're currently using. But how can we tie them into the modern world that we currently have? And then display. I personally have built several displays for a lot of my systems. So in one of the rooms, I have a variety of different shelves that I've built that allow me to display. So what I tend to do in this area is I pick the ones that I want to use, and they're the ones that are more accessible. The ones that are not going to be used are put into more of a display function, so they're on a shelf and such, and they tend to take up less room, just because get them off the table, get them off the floor. So you're going to need a workbench area. You're going to need some place to do these repairs, to do these restorations, because it is going to be very, very rare when you come across a system that is pristine and ready to go. You can find them. They are very costly, mostly because someone else has already gone through all the effort to restore and repair the system itself. We're going to talk, when we get to the part where we talk a little bit about where we're going to get hardware. I'll mention some of the better places and some of the difficulties that are occurring with finding this stuff at what I would consider to be reasonable prices. So as far as workbench areas, if you're married or have a spouse, again, go back, see number one, because you're going to need to find a place that they're going to let you work. If you're unmarried or don't have a spouse or partner, well then kitchen table works great. Just and spread out, because it's your domain and your world. Work where you will. And then you're going to need some of the basic tools, which we're going to get into in a couple of slides, and we're going to break those down into what are the basic tools that you're going to need, and then some advanced tools that are not essential but still good to have, that will help you work through some of the troubleshooting problems. And then once again, you're going to need patience. This is something that I struggled with. I wanted to have things up and running quickly, efficiently. I wanted to get these things back online, and it takes time and patience. If you are not already educated in basic electronics or digital circuits, I am not. I do not have an engineering degree. It's all been self-taught in that respect. Then you're going to need some patience to work through your problems that you're discovering, and learn good diagnostic techniques, learning where to start and what to step through in order to do effective diagnostics. Due to the time constraints and what I wanted to cover in this very basic one, we're not going to get into those diagnostics today, except I will touch on them maybe a little bit while we talk about tools and what's important. So I talked about picking a lane about picking what it is that you want to collect. Picking a lane, there's a lot of various reasons. So unless you are independently wealthy or have unlimited space at your house, you're going to have to pick a lane of what it is you want to collect, what it is that you want to have in this world of vintage electronics and computers. So just a couple of things. Mini computers, these are some terminologies you're going to hear thrown around. Mini computers, those are referring to things like, the PDP series of computers from DEC. They are multi-user systems. They're smaller than mainframes, but they're not microcomputers, which we have come to know as, the current desktop or personal computer was given the terminology of microcomputer. So mini computers, great challenge, amazing opportunities to find and troubleshoot some of these systems. But I will tell you, they're hard to find. They're very, very expensive when you do find them, and they're also they take up a ton of room, and sometimes will also require some special infrastructure in order to make them work, whether that's special cooling or special electrical supplies. If you're interested in that area, there's a YouTube channel called Dave's Garage, which I cannot recommend highly enough. Dave's really cool. He's an old Microsoft guy from back in the day, who I guess sold all his stock and turned into a multimillionaire. And he has a VAX and PDP 1170 in his garage, which, if you in the videos that he discusses, he talks about the various infrastructure changes he needed to make in order to get those systems up and running. But very rewarding if that's your area. Of course, I know a lot of you that are at JawnCon. I know there's a lot of focus on teletypes and phones, and that's another area where people tend to be interested in collecting. Again, as you probably have already seen through some of the displays there at the con, or through some of your own collecting. These as well can be very, very large space hogs, as far as if you're using original switching equipment or you getting original teletypes. So I've had the good fortune of helping out. I'm a volunteer at the Signals Museum here in Huntsville, Alabama, where it is a relatively brand new museum that takes people through the history of electronic communications, all the way from early pre-electronic days through the days of telegraph and all that, all the way up through modern computers and electronics. And I've had the pleasure of helping do some of the restoration work for the mini and microcomputers. And next time, I think I'll probably be moving towards the teletypes. That's something I've never done before, but I wouldn't mind learning more. But again, back to tolerant spouse, I'm pretty sure my tolerant wife will not be allowing me to get very large teletypes stored in our house. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to focus primarily on microcomputers. So, so this is before we move on to the next part to talk about the tools that you're going to need. This is also a big question you need to ask yourself, and that is, what is motivating you for this collecting? What is driving your passion to find, acquire, repair, restore, display, use all this classic technology? For me, it's because as a man approaching 60, I am, yes, beneath this baseball cap. There is just a little bit what's left of gray hair. The reason for me to collect and have these systems was I had this longing, this desire to see things back from the 80s. The 80s that was the years that I grew up, and that was my time. I loved it. I loved the 80s. I know there's a lot of resurgence in love for the 80s, but that time frame defines much of who I am. And those systems were very much a part of who I was and what I grew up to be, and of the experiences in life that I had. So these are part of it. This is like collecting a little bit of my own history. I set out, the goal was to have one system from each of the types of systems that I used as a kid and as a young adult. I've gotten almost all of them. The only one I do not have is one of the systems that the system that you saw in that early picture of me back in the 1980s, that Commodore CVM. I do not have one. It's still on my hunting list. They are available out there. You can find them on eBay. Man, are they pricey. I am not into paying modern computer prices, 15, 1800, 2000 or more dollars for a vintage computer that some repair and restoration may be required. I've done everything. Everything I've done has been on the cheap, if you will. So all of the systems that I have either been donated or very low cost purchases through various avenues. And we'll talk more about those sources when we get to that slide. All righty. Tools necessary tools. What do we need in order to accomplish our tasks? Well, very, very basic. Things we're going to need are going to be a soldering iron. And some of you are probably thinking, well, no kidding, Mark. Yeah, soldering iron is essential. And I would recommend a good soldering iron, one that is variable temp. You can get variable temp soldering iron, pencil type soldering irons at a variable temp. You can get them as little as $30 on eBay or AliExpress. They're not that bad. Personally, I have a Heiko. I like those because they're interchangeable tips. I can change whatever type of tip I'm using, and those tips are going to be important when it comes to doing SMD soldering. So if you're doing if you've already done some SMD soldering, you probably are aware there are some tips that work really, really well for that, and other ones that make it very problematic. And with that SMD soldering, not only or just any soldering in general, but we want to have some different solder sizes. 0.7 millimeters, 0.3 millimeters, those are typically the sizes that I keep on hand. I find that those are adequate enough, especially the 0.3 if I'm touching on SMD, or if I'm doing larger, discrete components and such, passives, I'm good to go with that 0.7 millimeter. 60/40 is what I tend to get. 60% tin, 40% lead. There are lead-free solders. I've never really explored them, but one of the things that I did build since I'd started doing a lot more soldering, I did build a little bit of a solder fan for myself. So it's really just an old fan from a tower system that is hooked up to a 12-volt power supply, and I put a piece of filter material in front and in the back that are the filter materials that are just used it's a white kind of filter material you can put in your air ducts, not to be confused with the filter that goes in your HVAC return, but the ones that you can put actually at at the exit parts of your air ducts in HVAC systems. And I just put a piece in front of that, and I put it near what I'm soldering. And that just pulls the solder fumes away and filters them out a little bit. There are commercial versions of that you can buy. So you're going to need some sort of desoldering tool. So I've seen a lot of people have different opinions on this. Some people will use they'll use desoldering ribbon or wick. I have mixed experiences and results with solder wick. A lot of times, it sure looks a lot easier on YouTube than it is when I try to use solder wick. As far as the plunger ones, those tend to be a little bit better. Those are sort of hand plungers. You push the plunger down, you heat up the solder, and when you click the button, it sort of sucks the solder up into the plunger system. Those tend to work a little bit better. I think the solder wick, everyone seems to like better for SMDs. I would say that probably is the case. My favorite is I have a Heiko vacuum soldering gun, which is, if you can imagine a soldering iron that is hollow, with a little vacuum at the end, and you put it over top of the piece that's to be desoldered, over top of the solder blob, let it heat up and melt, pull the trigger, and a little pump runs and sucks up the solder into a reservoir. And those are just awesome. Now, I would suggest that maybe you look for those on eBay, because somewhere between when I bought it a couple years ago and now, I guess I shouldn't be investing in IRAs. I should be investing in that particular tool. The price has gone insane, and I do not know why. They're just not that. It's just the same tool, it's exact same tool, and it's almost doubled in price. So the plungers and the wick may be your best place to start as a beginner who is just heading into this. Next is good flux. You want to have some good flux for your soldering. This is super important when you're doing SMD soldering. I had struggled for a long time doing SMD soldering, and I wanted to make sure that I could get these parts done and done right. I found a video on YouTube that showed someone using this flux called Kingbo RMA 218 flux. This individual, placed his SMD component on the board, put a generous amount of this Kingbo flux across all the leads, took some solder and literally just ran it across there, and that just whipped that right onto those leads and made a beautiful SMD solder joints at each of the leads with no spillover onto the board. Very clean, very well isolated leads for each of the different SMD component leads. It was really quite amazing. I've done that. It works just like that. I had never had any success like that with any other ways of doing SMD. So if you are going to be doing that SMD kind of soldering, I do recommend this Kingbo RMA 218. Amazing stuff. And if you look for the videos online for SMA soldering with Kingbo, SMD soldering, SMD soldering, you're going to find this. And you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. A multimeter, you're going to absolutely need a multimeter because you're going to need to be able to check traces, check continuity, check one of the first things we do when we work on vintage systems. You're going to hear a lot of people say, well, first thing you do is you pull out the REFA caps out of the power supplies. So that's absolutely the very first thing you do. REFA caps are old paper capacitors that over time degrade and have a tendency to go up in smoke and flame when they fail, and it fills your room with a very unpleasant smoke and smell. Often can damage components that are adjacent to those capacitors. They're there as filter capacitors in the power supply. You can replace them with moderns, or you can just pull them out in general. It's not that big a deal. But you're going to need this multimeter because a lot of the things that you're going to be doing is checking what are the voltages on the individual rails, on the individual lines that are feeding each of the different segments and sections of the vintage system. So you'll want to have a decent multimeter. Oddly enough, you can get a very decent multimeter, good entry-level multimeter at Harbor Freight. It's about maybe $40 and 45 bucks, and it is really pretty decent. It will do a good job for you. It has both capacitor checking as well. Some of them, the older versions, I think maybe even had a transistor check, but not a bad way to start. Also, you're going to need a variety of small pliers, cutters, picks, tweezers, and such. Again, Harbor Freight, great place to pick these up at a cheap price. For tweezers, I would recommend maybe looking on Amazon or eBay, because the tweezers you might want to try getting yourself some anti-static ones. So since they're a little more specialized, Harbor Freight tends to not have those. But for cheap pliers and cutters and picks, things like that, you're going to need those, and Harbor Freight is just great because I've been using those all along. You're going to want to get some long stick cotton swabs. Again, eBay, Amazon, ones that you'll see, they're sort of medical, they used a lot in the medical field for applying medications. The reason you'll want those is you're going to be doing a lot of work to clean up things, whether it's getting flux off of new solder joints, or whether it's getting grime and guck that's built up over years out of different ports and things. And these long stick swabs can be really helpful. Isopropyl alcohol is going to be one of your best friends. It not only breaks down the flux, it's great for cleaning up once you've soldered in new parts. You can take an old toothbrush, clean up and get all the flux off the boards with some isopropyl alcohol. But it works absolute wonders for just cleaning up dirty PCBs when you disassemble a system for repair and restoration. It also works great if you're needing to get old stickers. If someone put stickers on something and you're restoring that, a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on the sticker will loosen up that adhesive really well. So it's a very versatile solvent for this process. You're going to also want to have a variety of quantity of peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is another really helpful chemical for this, because it is a great cleaner. But you're going to notice that if you get more and more into this, you're going to come across the term retrobrighting. And that is a process where you're using ultraviolet light and hydrogen peroxide. You're immersing the plastic parts, the cases and other types of plastic parts, the ones that particularly that yellow very badly over time. There's a chemical process that happens in the old plastic that's why it yellows. Well, you can put these pieces into a plastic tub, fill it with peroxide, either stick it out in the sun or use ultraviolet LEDs, and you can expose it to that UV light for a while, and you'd be amazed on how it gets rid of that yellowing. Some people dislike this process because they claim it makes the plastics more brittle. I've not come across that, but I can't say that I can't prove or disprove that. So that's just something to consider. So additional tools, deoxit. I can't recommend deoxit enough. That stuff is amazing. I have resolved entire system problems simply by removing a chip from a socket, spraying the socket with some deoxit, putting the chip back in, and everything's back to normal. One of the channels I'll recommend down the road when we get to sections that can help you, Adrian Black, who has a channel on YouTube. He uses the expression deoxit that socket, and that is no joke. Anti-static brushes. Anti-static brushes are also something that you're going to want to get for getting grime and just years of dirt and dust, old spiders that have died on PCBs and things like that, and brushing that all off there. Really helpful to have some anti-static brushes. You're going to want to collect up various sockets, ribbon cables, header pins, header sockets, just you name it, sockets of all sizes and such. What I tend to do is I go on AliExpress and I just pick a decent price for whatever it is, and I just buy a bunch in various sizes. I'll get ribbon cables of various, pin size. Of course, if you buy 40 pin ribbon cable, you can always tear it down to what you need if it's smaller. Sockets, 4, 8, 16, 14, typical socket sizes. I will pick up a whole bunch and just have them in a bin. They're always available. Header pins is the like, and same with header sockets for those ribbon cables. You're going to want a chip pry tool or a puller and a pin straightener. The puller is, there are some out there that are very expensive, very nice. They're almost plunger-like. You put them over top of the IC, you press the button, and it grips it evenly and pulls it straight up. I use a chip pry. It's sort of just a very small, it looks like a very small crowbar, and you just get it up underneath that chip, and you just go back and forth until the chip pops out. Pin straighteners, these are really awesome tools. It just helps get your chips, whether you're replacing a chip, putting a new socket in, just gets those pins nice and straight and gets the kinks out of them. So that's just a nice little luxury item to have. Get an assortment of passive components. I have purchased from Amazon lots of these boxes of just a mixture of quarter watt resistors, a mixture of various electrolytic and ceramic capacitors, just so I have a variety available to me on hand. Next is going to be organization for all this. You're going to need some way. Remember I said about space? Yeah, you're going to need space on the workbench too, because you're going to need a way to organize this. Those passive components, if you buy them in those kits, they tend to come in nice little kits. They're organized, broken down by the values, and you can store the box. That makes it kind of nice and convenient. But as you can see, we're talking when it comes to desoldering irons, soldering irons, all the various parts, the chemicals you're going to need, all these things are going to take some room. So you need to give some thought on how you're going to organize your workspace and organize your storage. Some fancy tools. It's nice to have a hot air gun. I have a very inexpensive Harbor Freight hot air gun. I use it for heating shrink tube. It is not effective. It is inadequate for hot air reflow, but you can get hot air reflow stations. You can get some for less than $100, especially on AliExpress. If you're into doing SMD work by reflow and solder paste, that's not a bad way to go. You're going to find that a lot of the old systems, sometimes their ROM chips go, and there are also a variety of test programs that people have written that you can burn onto an EEPROM. So having an EEPROM programmer is also another valuable tool to have for you. You can get those pretty inexpensively. Do some shopping around to see which one will work best for you. Make sure that you are taking into consideration the voltage level. You need to make sure that your EEPROM programmer can handle the right voltage. Some of the older chips and even the modern replacement EEPROMs can require up to 24 volts and such to do the programming. So a lot of these modern inexpensive Chi-Com knockoffs or whatever, if you will, that you can get on AliExpress are low voltage. They only work with the USB voltage. Make sure you get one that has the ability to have some external power applied to it. And 3D printers. I can't tell you how many times I've had to 3D print parts that have been broken. If I built a new power supply, an external power supply for something, I want to print a case. Do you need to have one? No. Check your local library. A lot of libraries have 3D printing services available to them in their maker labs. An oscilloscope, you're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, I need an oscilloscope. I need a logic analyzer. Need is a big word. They are good to have. They're fun to have. They are certainly helpful, but I did this hobby for years before I dumped the $400 on a oscilloscope. And matter of fact, some oscilloscopes, depending on which ones you buy, some of them you can even hack and get a little bit of an extended frequency ranges on some of them because they're all just little Linux boxes. And if you can enter a code, it'll expand, and now all of a sudden you have a larger frequency range. So check those out before you buy one. Make sure you're getting the right frequency ranges. That goes for the little pocket digital oscilloscopes that are available on AliExpress. Make sure they're covering the range of frequencies that you need. All right. Sources. Where do I get this kind of stuff? Where can I find it? So I say your own basement attic, and kicking myself in the ass because, I can't begin to tell you how many things I got rid of over the years that I am just so angry at myself for having done that. My original Commodore 64 that I bought back in 1983, 84, my original Timex Sinclair. Oh, I wish I still had those. Not to mention all the bits and pieces of equipment that I got rid of over the years that I just thought I would never need, but I hadn't gotten into this vintage collecting just yet. Friends and relatives, there are always things lurking in someone's attic or someone's basement that they don't want. I have several systems that just having a conversation with people saying, yeah, I started doing this. They're like, hey, you want this? Here's a Commodore VIC-20. It's been sitting in my basement. I don't want it. Here's an Atari 2600. I don't want it. You'd be amazed how many things you can collect through that process. So, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, and tell them that you're doing this, and put it in their mind that you may to look around. eBay, eBay's getting they're getting some brass balls on eBay when it comes to charging for pieces. They are really getting expensive these days. So eBay is, I do that sparingly now, and it has to be a really good deal before I'll buy on eBay, just because they're just people that are selling stuff are just asking outrageous prices. Thrift shops. This can be hit or miss. There are a ton of thrift shops in your area, probably ones you don't even know, I'm sure. And they say they're hit or miss because obviously they only get what people donate, but it's also very, very location influenced. If you go out to thrift shops in the Silicon Valley area, yeah, there are tons and tons of good hits. You can find a lot of stuff in the Silicon Valley area, some of the areas around Arizona, in Arizona as well. But you get into areas where technology is not a big deal, thrift shops may not work. Same goes for estate auctions. They are great places. You can find often home computers there. May not be anything exotic, but you can find some things there. But again, also location influenced. What is the industry that is in that area? That if you are living in mostly in rural farm area where no one was really big into technology, you're probably not going to find some things that you want. But if you're in Silicon Valley, you're in some of the areas of Texas and Arizona and other technology corridors, you may find more. E-recycling. So this is something interesting. There's a lot of people on the different channels that talk about going down to their e-recyclers to find parts. Where I am, the e-recycling facility is part of the city, and they do not allow anybody to come in and dumpster dive through what is being dropped off. I'm sure their lawyers probably told them that they can't do that. I've tried talking to people that work there and saying, hey, could you just keep an eye out? I can make it worth your while. I can throw some money your way, and no dice. So that may or may not, if you have an e-recycling facility in your area, check it out. Go find out what their rules are. They may be allow people to go through the stuff that's dropped off. Facebook Marketplace, you can find stuff. Typically, the prices are better than eBay, so not a bad idea. Craigslist, what's better than a place where you can find all sorts of computers at Craigslist. Usually, it's between cocaine and compressors, and you can find that located, in your area or as far as you're willing to drive. Prices tend to be a little bit better, but again, sometimes the sellers are shady. I've actually gotten free stuff off of Craigslist. People have posted saying, hey, free. I got a TRS-80 Model 4 portable from a guy who was just looking to get rid of it. So, okay, happy to give it a home. And there's also, if you're looking at Apple stuff, there's a site called Apple Rescue of Denver. They take donations from people of Apple material. They don't buy stuff. They only take donations. They restore it, clean it up, and then they sell it to folks. I've never bought anything from there, but their prices are not bad. It's just hit or miss as to what they have at the time. Eventually, you're going to need some software to run on all this. So there are a multitude of software places where you can get all sorts of stuff. These are just your best bet is to Google them. Google what you're looking for in particular. There's nothing magical about where I found these. They're just different sites, but they tend to be more set up based upon the particular platform you're looking for, whether it's Commodore, Atari, Timex, Sinclair, or TRS-80s, etc. And that goes for also if you're doing mini computers, you'll find software for those things as well in that same fashion. So it's all free. It is out there. It's all open. It's all not open source per se, but it is no longer copyrighted due to age, and many of these things have been abandoned by the original copyright owners. So you can pull software down from here. There's a lot of ways to run it on systems now that are not using the actual floppy disks, and you're using other methods to get the software into the system through the same floppy cables and such, but just from modern components, and those are all over the place. So I said earlier that some of these things, why BMW? It's bring more wallet, because the cost of this addiction can be high, and it does depend on where you're getting stuff, your creativity. Be creative on where you're going to find stuff. Be patient. I'm still waiting for that Commodore CBM. You know, you can get cheaper stuff if you're willing to do the restore, but be careful. This can get pricey if you have to replace too much stuff. Do a little research about what a restore of that particular device is going to need. Things that are too far gone can cost you more in parts to replace them than it would be to buy a new system. If it's just passes and traces that are broken, hey, that's great. That's easy to fix. It's easy peasy. ICs are getting tricky. Not every IC in the old systems have modern equivalents. So sometimes you'll need to find new old stock, which is components from that time frame, but that are new. Or some people that are, there's some folks out there that on eBay that will harvest old chips and sell them. But also that's where, you know, being on forums and local groups, Vintage Computer Federation, other groups, local groups that you might join, have all sorts of folks that will just, you know, trade parts and such. With eBay, beware, there are lots of fraudulent parts out there, so just keep that in mind. So we've got about 15 minutes left here, so I just wanted to just go through some things. If you want to have systems that are not and you can't find the originals, I would love to have an original VT100 terminal. I don't have the disposable cash for an original VT100 terminal. They are out there. They're just expensive. This one guy made a little. This is a little board. You can buy the PCBs, build it up yourself, and it is a VT100 terminal emulator. There's a system, if you're into Commodore 64s, there's something called the BMC 64. It's basically Commodore 64 on a Pi. What makes this really kind of cool is that if you can get yourself a broken Commodore 64, gut it. There's it's a nice the maker of this has a nice instruction rundown on how to install that BMC 64 in an original Commodore case using the original keyboard. So it's about as close as you can get to the original without using modern electronics. If you're into the mini scene and you're interested in building things, there's the Pi DP series. There's Pi DP 1, 8, 10, 11. These systems are great. They're sold as kits. Everything comes with it. Builds out a really beautiful replica and runs and functions exactly like the original, with using a Raspberry Pi as the hardware behind it. All sorts of things you can do with this. All sorts of great ways to attach things to it because it's that Raspberry Pi. IMSI, if you're into the IMSI computer world, which you may recognize from War Games movie, this group called the High Nibble, this guy has built a beautiful IMSI replica. It's absolutely gorgeous. I have one of these. It's still in kit form. I have not gotten around to building it. But again, it's just a wonderful alternative to purchasing a hard-to-find. These systems, if you wanted to buy one of these systems, I've seen complete ones go for as much as $10,000. And that is not in my price range. If you don't want to have hardware, you can find a variety of different things for emulation. There's Apple II. There's mini VMac for the old earlier Macs. Atari 800 emulators, Vice for Commodore 64s. If you're just into playing classic games, then there's Play Classic Games. If you're into the Apple platform, the 2E, 2 Plus, 2C platform, the Virtual 2 is fabulous. Give the guy the $15 or whatever it is that he's charging nowadays for the software. Awesome piece of equipment. OpenEMU is a great way to emulate game consoles if you just want to play some old school games. To give you a little bit of an example, this is what it looks like. This is what Virtual 2 looks like. And here's how easy it is. So you can it's drag and drop, reboot the system, emulates looking just like an actual Apple II back in the day. And there it was. I was dropping the actual file, disk image file into the system, and these things run just like the originals. Help. You're going to need some help. You're going to need some places to learn. YouTube, your best friend. Best ones out there that I found: Adrian's Digital Basement, Tech Tangents. Tech Tangents this guy is awesome. If you're not already following Shelby, I strongly recommend you do. He is an amazing dude when it comes to, he finds some of the most obscure things out there. It's awesome. He does both micro and mini computer system restorations. Going back to Adrian's Digital Basement, that is probably the #1 site that I use for information. Retro Hack Shack, also a great site. What Ken Making, a great site. Ben Eater, he does a lot of electronics education, and you can actually build a 6502 computer following his stuff online. Great instructions. If you want to bolster that learning of electronics, I can't recommend Ben enough for that learning. Apple Fritter is an Apple. They cover more platforms than Apple, but it is intentionally very Apple focused. But it is a forum out there that is just absolutely fantastic. The people on there are just absolutely awesome people, just great folks, incredibly helpful. I have had so much assistance learning, and even just folks will mail stuff each other back and forth in order to help each other with maybe extra PCBs they have, or writing some software to something that they can't. Maybe they need an original disk of something and they can't produce it. People just have been fabulous friends. Oldcrap.org. There's also a lot of good information out there, but it's all over. I'm not going to insult you guys and tell you how to Google stuff, obviously. But these are just some of the platforms within on the internet, and specifically within YouTube, that I have found to be the most helpful and the most worthy of time spent. And also, coming soon, as soon as I get off my butt and actually get it going, Memories of Neon. This is going to be my restoration channel. I'm going to be building out a restoration channel myself in the likes of the other ones that I just talked about, talking about the things that I'm doing, more of the specifics about drilling down into how am I handling certain types of faults, how am I handling certain types of repairs and such. So that will be out on my YouTube channel once I get finished getting everything set up. So hopefully, maybe some of you guys will find it interesting enough to come out and check out that channel. There are tons and tons of books out there. These are just a selection of some of my favorites. I absolutely found them invaluable in learning how the systems work when it came to doing troubleshooting and repairs. And I would strongly recommend, if you're doing Apple work, this Apple II reference manual, invaluable. Any of the Sam's books, if you're familiar with those, there was an old series of books that were out back in the 80s, 90s, and such. That's when they got their start. Those books tear down into the systems into very low level understanding of the system, and that's incredibly helpful when you start troubleshooting circuits. If you're interested in again, back to that historical aspect, this PDP 8E book, this small computer handbook, all these, by the way, are available for free on archive.org. They're all PDF versions that are out there, so there's no need to go out and spend any money on these unless you want to collect these as well. Then you're going to need more space. So, but this small computer handbook is the book that Steve Wozniak read as a young teenager, first learning his way into the computer world before he built the Apple I. So with that, I'm going to ask if the proctors in the room or anybody, if they want to see if there's any questions from folks.
Absolutely. We have like 3 minutes for questions. If anybody has any, just shout them out and I'll repeat them. Anybody?
It's okay.
Awesome.
It's all right. So here's my contact info. It's stargeezerlabs@gmail.com. So my hacker handle is Stargeezer. And I hope you guys have a really great con. I'm really sad that I wasn't able to join you guys. I helped Russ build. I helped make the badges for the first JawnCon way back 3 years ago. Way back 3 years ago. So I was hoping this year would be the year I'd make it there, but sadly enough, no. There's always next year. But if anybody wants to drop me a line, there's the email address, and Don't spam me. Don't register me for stupid things. And once the Memories of Neon is up online, please feel free to join. Thanks, folks. Thanks for your time and attention. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.